John, it's great to talk to you, man.
You too, brother.
It's been a long fucking time, man.
You're gonna have to refresh my memory because I have no idea how long it's been.
That's how long it's been. Just that long. actually, I think the last time we talked was believe it or not, was before the Unplugged album. So that tells you right there how fucking long it's been. You know.
Oh, that was sometime between the Ice Age and the birth of Christ, but whatever.
Oh, that was, yeah. I mean, I was like, I'm 48 now. I think I was 17, maybe, or something like that. So,
nice.
We're aging ourselves now.
Well, I don't know if you're aging yourself, but you just fucking made me feel ancient. Thank you very much.
Well, I mean, I was sophomore in high school when I bought the Scream album. So,
wow, that's okay. Crazy. Funny. So here's the thing. I just did another interview before this one, and the guy said, "Oh, so this is the 30th anniversary of the Scream album," and I'm like, "Wow,
yeah,
okay." Sorry, I'll be right back. I got to go change my diaper now.
That's amazing. Well, the funny thing is that, I've been doing a whole little series on my blog lately. Basically, I've been kind of talking about a lot of the albums that turned 30 this year. And it is, for someone who, like I said, I don't consider myself old because I consider age as a number, but compared to most 48-year-olds, I'm probably younger. But looking back at how old I was when these albums came out, I'm like, there's no fucking way these albums are 30 years old. That can't even be possible. But I mean, you're talking Dangerous Toys had put out Hellacious Acres. You had, Motorhead put out 1916, Alice Cooper, Hey Stupid, Metal Church. I mean, the list just goes on. And then even going into next year, you're talking about, the second Tora record. And I'm going, wait, aren't these bands that my dad said probably wouldn't be around in 6 months? What I mean? But there's something to be said about how some of this stuff sounds dated. Yeah, I mean, not some of the stuff I just named, but there's a lot of stuff that sounds dated, say from the 80s and 90s, where you can put it on and you can go, yeah, that sounds like that era. I'm not quite sure why I liked that so much, but the Scream, Tora, Dangerous Toys, those albums are stuff that I listen to, and I feel like that the sound was encapsulated in such a way that there was almost a classic style of production to them, so that when I hear them now, I don't think, oh man, that sounds like 91. To me, I'm like, wow, that sounds as good as something I could pick up that was produced this year.
Well, and I think a lot of it, I mean, well, first of all, Anthony from Tora is a very good friend of mine. And I know where his head is at as far as influences.
Right.
He's old school Memphis blues. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? So I think, it's really weird. There's, I was drawing my influences are from the 60s, all through the 70s. It's weird. It wasn't necessarily, it wasn't really over the years, with the exception of Zeppelin, who's been out of those records. Eddie Kramer did all the Hendrix stuff, all the a bunch of the Zeppelin, the Kiss Alive stuff, Humble Pie, the Beatles, the Stones. So we kind of stayed true to where our influences were. We wrote that way, and then we had the guy that produced a lot of that shit come in and help us translate that stuff to, you know, back then vinyl, CD, whatever. Mm-hmm. But you know, and I think the stuff that sounds current or still sounds current or relevant is the stuff that really doesn't, there really is no time stamp on it. There's like, it's like, I mean, there's a few songs in the Scream album that I would actually like back, and I would redo the lyrics because mm-hmm. back then, you know, to a degree, I was young and all I wanted to do was write songs about drinking and partying and getting laid. But for the most part,
didn't we all?
But I think for the most part, it was like kind of I don't want to say nondescript, but it wasn't like I wasn't writing songs about what was going on Sunset Boulevard. I was writing songs about things that were going on with me or with the world. And again, with Motley, same thing. We were looking at things that were happening, like, you know, when you look at songs like Dropping Like Flies, we were talking about things like AIDS. We were talking about the riots in LA. And if you look at it now, it's relevant now because you could just take that song and move it up 25 years. And now you'd be talking about COVID and still, you know, riots about, just the riots, you know what I mean? In general, social issues. So there really is, I don't know, classic stuff. I just think doesn't have a timestamp on it where you go, oh yeah, he's, you know, whatever. So I don't know. That's my take. That's my 2 cents. Next question. Because I have no idea where with this.
Actually, I loved where you were going with it. And actually, speaking of Motley, like if you're cool, I'm just going to talk about them for an hour. No, I'm just kidding.
Good talk, bro.
Yeah, like it was like nice knowing you, Don. And actually, of course, you know, we know that that's been flogged like a dead horse. But one of the things I did want to thank you before we even got started was like not running like hell when you see something called the Great Southern Brain Fart, because I can tell you now that I've had more PR people go, I am not going to even like present this interview request to an artist because your name is obnoxious of your site. To you as an artist, like I always like, to me, that the first step to me is like when an artist actually accepts an interview request, I go, okay, so they've already looked past like a name to kind of see what's going on. What would you say that that's how you are as a person in general? Like, I mean, because I feel like as musicians and as rockers, as a long-haired kid all my life, you know, we were judged by our covers, you know. So why would an artist judge a book by its cover?
Listen, man, at the end of the day, I get judged all the time, you know, not so much until I joined Motley Crue, but let's be real. Once I joined Crue, I was immediately compared to Vince. I had to deal with that the whole time I was on stage, you know, and it's funny. It's almost 30 years. It's probably, I joined Motley in 92. Yeah. So next year, 30 years that I joined the band, and I was there for 4 or 5. So, right. You know, but people are still, they won't let it go. And I'm kind of stuck in this thing where I kind of get judged. Oh, is John better? Is Vince better? Is John better? Is Vince better? I don't really care. I've never said that I'm better than Vince. I've never said Vince is better than me. We're different. That's the thing. I don't like judging people on anything. I don't like judging people on the color of their skin. I don't like judging people on their religion, their political viewpoints. I don't. I'm probably the most non-judgmental person. And if you look at my Facebook page, I've never made any political comments. Mm-hmm. I just keep it to myself.
Right.
You know, I don't like when people judge other people or judge a book by its cover. I'm actually developing a TV show based on this whole premise. So hopefully that'll get picked up and we'll go from there. But it's really kind of sad. Like, you know, mm-hmm. I don't understand that whole concept. Even my guy was like, he's like, you know, oh, you're doing this thing with a great Southern brain fart and, you know, hate the name, but you know, hey, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, dude, seriously, I don't really care. Don't care. As long as the interview is good. And the idea is to let the world know that John Corabi's still alive, still kicking, still putting out new music. I'm still moving forward. And even to a degree, like even this, like, you know, in some weird way, I'm making a statement. Somebody just wrote to me a few months back, you know, so I'm gonna open up the can here mm-hmm. and fill people in on something they didn't know. But
go for it. Exclusive.
Yeah, exclusive. For the last 30 years, I've dyed my hair. But it was funny. I had a fan.
Breaking news.
Corabi hair dye back in the days of Motley. But I had a fan write me about 5 months ago. And it was again, I don't understand this. He put a picture of me from like the Scream or Motley. Mm-hmm. And then a recent picture of me like at a show, whatever. I had some gray in my beard. And he just wrote, dude, what happened? I'll give you a minute to think about that. And I was just like, okay, I normally wouldn't respond to this, mm-hmm. but let me roll up my sleeves here and respond to this fucking email you just sent me. So I wrote back, I'm like, dude, what happened is 30 fucking years. I'm human. We get older.
Oh, yeah.
So I just said to my wife about 5 months ago, I go, you know what? I don't understand. There's a lot of things I don't understand. But I said, I'm not, that's it. I'm done. You can trim my hair. You can cut my hair, but I'm not fucking dyeing it anymore. You know what? I'm 62 years old. I am what I am. I've been doing this for 30 plus 40 fucking years. Mm-hmm. When did it become about, when did being in the music business become about the color of my beard? Or, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's the other thing. It's like, I said this, I wrote the song Dead in Motley about a lot of this shit, or not Motley, Union. And it was like, when did you become passé because you hit a certain age in the music industry? Or when do radio stations decide to stop playing an artist because, you know, he's from the 80s or he's from the 90s.
Right.
It's, you know, old news. Hold on a minute. Where are you at?
Oh, there you go.
There you go. I got a call on the other line. And it just annoys me. I'm like, I'm not playing middle linebacker for the fucking Falcons or the Chicago Bears. Like, right. I don't, you know, why do I have to make sure that my hair is dyed? Or why do I have to make sure, you know, and I'm pretty sure at 62, there's not a lot of, pardon my French, there's not a lot of pussy out there that wants to fucking go to bed. So like those days are long gone. You know what I mean? Well, we just listened to the fucking song I wrote and, critique the song, not the color of my fucking beard or not the clothes that I'm wearing or not the fact that I'm endorsed by Depends. Do you know what I mean? Whatever. And it just annoys the shit out of me. I don't get it. I really don't get it. And, it's like, hey, Picasso, listen, we're going to need you to put that paintbrush down. You're 50 now. So, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
I don't understand the whole thing with age and art, whatever it is, poetry, poetry, music, comedy, whatever. Like, honestly, I think people get better with age.
Oh, I totally agree. And what I always thought the ironic thing about this is that, like people, from, like I said, like a lot of the bands I listened to in my youth, like even though image at some point for some bands was kind of tied into what they were doing, a lot of it, while there might have been the image, the attitude was very non-conformist, right? So it's almost like, why would you conform in your later years to the way that people think you should look based on how you used to? Do you know what I mean? I mean, it's like, it's like when Bruce Dickinson, like, years ago, like cut all his hair off, right? Everyone was like, oh my God, Bruce Dickinson cut his hair off. And I was like, well, the guy still sings. The guy can still do what he wants to do, but he does not have to conform to what you think he should be based on what he looked like in 84. Can the guy still write a fucking song? Can the guy still sing? Can he still produce quality music? Because I'll be honest, won't name any names, but there are artists from the 80s, and maybe even going into the early 90s when I was graduating high school, that relied so heavily on an image that even now in their later years, that's all they have because they lacked the artistic substance of anything. So when I hear like your voice, like, on the new song, and I know I'm going to say it totally wrong. So
I'll say it for you. Cosi Bella.
Okay. Then I was going to say it right then. Okay. Sometimes I feel like some of these things have like a weird accent to them, but like when I heard that song, my first thought was, being a longtime fan of just bands and music, I was like, okay, that's John Corabi. I knew that voice right away. It's very distinct to me. But then I also heard like a lot of the influences that over the years, not only have you worn them on your sleeve, but they're pieces of music that I love, about music. So like, like I heard, Beatles. I even heard some kind of like Beatles a la Jellyfish, which was a great band from the 90s. Because to me, Jellyfish was kind of that Beatles, Queen, Badfinger hybrid type thing. So I kind of liked that you took elements of that and then threw in some Thin Lizzy, but all this is in one fucking song. And so to me, that is the basis of like, when I heard that song, I didn't go, oh, that's the guy that used to sing and, in the Scream and then was in Motley. And then, it's like, to me, I was like, that's fucking John Corabi, man. And that is a great song. So to me, substance and songwriting doesn't have an expiration date, no matter what it looks like.
And it's funny, and I'm sure people, at some point too, it's funny. Had the internet been around when Van Gogh was painting Starry Night, I'm sure, 10 million fans would have been like, hey, dude, just, my professional opinion, you're much blue in that photo. You know what I mean? It is what it is, man. Like, this is one of the reasons why I hate award shows.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't tell you the last time I watched a Oscars, Grammy. Who cares?
Mm-hmm.
You know, at the end of the day, to be honest with you, I'm knocking on wood, you know, there's a part of me that would love to be nominated for a Grammy, but to be honest with you, I don't even think I'd go if I was nominated, because it's like, who is it that says this album is better than that album?
Right.
Who is it that says, you know, again, I've lived. So who has the right to say John Corabi is a better singer than Vince Neil, or vice versa?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? We're different. You know, for an album like, you know, any album to be voted, oh, this is the best album of the year, I call bullshit. Because I guarantee if there's five albums in that category, for that one record that won, the other four probably have a shit ton of fans that think that was the record that should have been the record of the year. Do you know what I mean? So it's like art, poetry, comedy, music. It's all in that, like music especially. It's all in the ears of the fans.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't understand the whole concept of giving somebody an award and saying you have the best album of the year.
Right.
Who said that? Who judged that? You know?
Well, that's a funny thing, because I was having this conversation with another friend of mine, another writer, a fellow music writer who's a good friend of mine. And her and I were talking about this whole concept about award shows and the Grammys and whatnot. And one of the things that I had told her, I was like, you know, I was like, it's kind of like when you're a kid and you're being picked for, I don't know, kickball. Just because you got picked doesn't make you the better kicker. It made you maybe the better looking one, or the one that, you know, that everyone likes a little more. But I've never looked at the Grammys and thought to myself, wow, okay, I need to go out and buy every one of those records. Because, you know, one of my things that I always like to tell people, like, it's kind of my thing, is that to me, some of the best music I listen to is the music that no one's ever heard of. You know, I mean, because that's the thing, is that people put so much merit into, okay, so this is what a bunch of suits sitting in a meeting up in New York and in LA are saying, okay, these albums brought in more money than so-and-so, so we're going to put them on a sheet of paper, and then we're going to paper, rock, scissors and see who gets it.
Well,
you know, like, that's the thing.
Let's use a few bands that we already mentioned as an example. So you were saying earlier, you mentioned Jellyfish.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's sad to me. I'm a huge fan of that band. Other than Japan, you put Jellyfish on concert in America and they'll barely sell out a fucking phone booth.
Oh, yeah.
But does that make them a bad band? No, because they're fucking amazing. There was another band in the 70s that I wasn't really aware of. Richard Fortus turned me onto them. And it's hilarious. A lot of people don't even know about the band, but they were called Big Star.
Oh, yeah. Like a power pop band. Yeah.
Yes. And if you go and you listen to that band's music, I was like, holy shit, these guys are fucking amazing. They could not get arrested. And then 20 years after, you know, some of the members OD'd and committed suicide or whatever their story was, you go back and you look at it. Then all of a sudden this show, that 70s show comes out. Cheap Trick covers a Big Star song and makes a globally famous song. Do you know what I mean? So then you have Jellyfish. You have another band, King's X. I think to be just a massive band. why? Now, another one, like I love Metallica, but to me, a local hometown band for you, that to me is every bit as heavy and melodic. And I sit there all the time. I tell people all the time, another band that should be way bigger than they are is Seven Dust.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at Seven Dust, I mean, yeah, they do good business. But when you look at the numbers that Metallica does in comparison to Seven Dust, you go, why? What is it that makes Metallica that much better than Seven Dust? Don't get it. You know what I mean? I don't get it. And this is what I've been saying for years is, you know, I just did a book recently. It's called Horseshoes and Hand Grenades.
Mm-hmm.
About it. It's kind of a lot of it is about this because it's basically the story of my life. The term horseshoes and hand grenades was penned by my dad. But it's funny. I have been the king of being at the right place, but always at the wrong time. And there's a thing in there. Like I talk about perseverance in the book. I talk about hard work. I talk about not taking no for an answer. But there's one ingredient in success that nobody likes to talk about or won't talk about. And that is luck.
Mm-hmm.
It's like having that song where the band fired on all cylinders. Then they gave it to the record label and everybody at the label fired on all cylinders. And then the last and final ingredient was something lined up with the universe where all the stars were in line and everything just, for some magical reason, fell into place for that band or that person. And they just blew up. Another example is Peter Frampton.
Mm-hmm.
Peter Frampton's statement record was Frampton Comes Alive.
Mm-hmm. Which is like, 4 albums after he even debuted or something like that?
Yes. Yeah. And this is the thing about luck. That record, On a Fluke, which, by the way, was produced by Eddie Kramer.
Yes.
That record, in a nutshell, Peter had a deal and he had done like 2 records with A&M. He had left by, he did 2 solo records and was struggling. And he wanted out of his deal, but he had a 3-album deal or a 4-album deal, whatever it was. And he just said, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to do a live record that fulfills my contract. And I'm just going to throw it out there and boom. And they did this record and look, history, like it was just like something happened where that performance, those songs that he had already previously recorded, that record just magically connected with everybody at that time, that year. And I think it's still the biggest selling live record of all time. He's 20 million copies of that record. Who saw that coming? So luck is a huge part of this. And for every Steven Tyler and Nikki Sixx and, you know, Robert Plant and all these guys, myself included, for every guy that's had the opportunity to do a record and do a record deal and travel and be blessed, there's a million guys sitting in a garage somewhere trying to figure out how to get out of their own way. And how do I do what that John Corabi guy's doing? And it just, you know, luck or whatever circumstances are just not in their, it's not in their cards. And my thing is, I'm still trying to figure out what that song is that's just going to put me over the top to become the household name. Like, how do I become Nikki Sixx? Or how do I become Steven Tyler or Mick Jagger or whatever? So it's really all about luck, man. That's a huge part of it. I'm still struggling. I'm still trying. I'm still trying to write music and grow and be the best that I can be. But you know what? I'm hoping it doesn't. I'm hoping one of these new songs connects with people to some degree and elevates me again to the next level. But it may never happen. You know,
but
all you can do.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said, all you can do is the best you can do. Write the best song, sing it the best you can, play guitar on it the best you can, and just pray that the stars are lined up when you release it.
Well, and that's the thing is that, again, it kind of goes back to what I said a little earlier about, you know, to me, some of my favorite music, like me as a person, as a music lover, some of my favorite music is the music that nobody has ever heard, you know, and in my opinion, when I hear these artists, like I could probably name 5 bands right off the top of my head right now that I love so much, that play everything from, you know, from hippie rock to psychedelic occult rock that sounds like it could have been Jefferson Airplane. You know what I mean? Like I could name 5 bands that are out right now that no one's ever heard of. But to me, I look at that and I go, these are some of the best bands around and no one's hearing them. But what sticks with me the most, and maybe this is also because I'm a writer myself, is that sometimes the hunt is greater than the catch sometimes. And
right.
I feel like that as a writer and as a creative person, whether I'm writing a song or whether I'm writing, you know, essays or working on a new book or whatever, is that while there's a part of me that hopes that, yeah, I would love for tons of people to grasp onto this and do it and get it and maybe become, you know, the next big rock writer or the next big, you know, folk singer or whatever, you know. But for me to continue to write the best that I can is more important to me than trying to sculpt something that I say, okay, that's going to be it. I'm going to do the next Billie Eilish song. You know, it's like, no, I'm going to do the next Don DeLamont song. And if people dig it, then they dig it. But you're right. I mean, it's timing, it's luck, it's fate. It's, you know, there's so many things in the cosmos that's wrapped around, you know, like what's going to happen.
But it's funny too. I think at the end of the day, you have to be true to yourself. Because listen, I could do the same thing. I could sit down and buy, you know, Billie Eilish records and sit down and write songs exactly like that. But I think the audience would see through the bullshit and they would go, oh, he's not being true. Like that's not, you know what I mean? You just, you know, man, you just do what you do and you keep at it. And hopefully, you know, my biggest thing is, you know, yeah, I want to be able to, yeah, I'd love nothing more than to go to a fucking Ferrari dealership right now and buy a new Ferrari and drive it for a little bit. But it's all good. My thing is, I just want to be happy. I just want to, I want to live my life comfortably. I don't want to stress about getting older and, you know, being on Social Security. I don't want to, you know, I don't want to sell out. I want to be true to myself, but I just want to live comfortably. I want to put some money in the bank for my kids and my grandkids. And then when I go, knock on wood, here's my body of work. Do what you will with it. You know what I mean? And hopefully you make a living, because I sure shit didn't. But you know what I mean? I just kind of, I don't worry about all the bullshit, the trappings. That's one of the beauties of being in Motley. I did learn a very hard lesson when I was in the band, and I saw how my phone was ringing. I was being invited to all the parties. I was the king shit when I was in the band. And then when I was out of the band, it was like I had fucking leprosy. And I realized that, which again, like, love it or hate it, but I think the universe gave me Motley Crue for a reason. It might sound weird, but my son was diagnosed with diabetes. My mother was diagnosed with cancer, and Motley came shortly after, and I was able to take care of my family. I feel, a great record with the guys. I had a lot of fun with the guys. Mm-hmm. And then as soon as my mom passed away and my son started feeling better, that's when Vince came back to the band. Again, the universe took care of me. But I also learned lessons in that band. And again, leaving the band and seeing how people treated me when I was out to when I was in, I went, oh, okay, you know what? All of this is just bullshit and a facade. Mm-hmm. Like, it could go away like that. It could come like that, but it can go away like that as well. So I need to just keep it real. Keep it real, boss. I need to keep it real and just do my thing and live today for today, live tomorrow for tomorrow, mm-hmm. and just keep trudging forward. That sounded like a public service announcement. I apologize, but it is what it is, man. You know, like, I don't worry about shit anymore. Hence the beard.
I think we're in a race here, man. You know, you got a little bit to catch up here.
Listen, you're going a little more biblical. I'm doing more like Sam Elliott from Roadhouse, but whatever.
Look, we got Sam Elliott, then we got Jerry Garcia. So, yeah. Hey, so we got the two total different spectrums. Well, one of the, I mean, and it's so funny because, people will knock this and people will sometimes even kind of like be like, oh man, what a crock of shit or whatever though. But there is this kind of like a cosmic way of thinking with you. And I feel the same way because that's how I kind of look at a lot of things. And in some ways I feel like maybe just from talking to you now and from just hearing interviews with you and reading, your lyrics and things like that. One of the things I kind of took away also from the whole experience of you between the time you were in Motley and when you didn't, was that not that it was like would it be safe to say that it was humbling, but at the same time, not so much humbling, but it was more like, okay, it just kind of was confirming just a lot of your ideas of what you thought being on a level like that would be, and kind of made you be like, yeah, been there, done it. Don't really care to do that again.
No, it's just, it's funny. Like I've said this in interviews a lot. And this is, sorry, I'm making a coffee while I talk to you.
Dude, I had to have mine early.
I think on my fifth cup, but whatever. I'm going to paint my house later with an eyelash. You know what? It's like, I learned a very valuable lesson when I was in Motley. And again, it was when I was in, people treated me one way. When I was out, completely different. And I mean, everybody across the board, like guitar companies, amp companies, clothing companies, like they were like, you're only as good as your last effort. Oh, you're not in Motley anymore? Like, done. Stick a fork in him. He's done. And one of the things that annoys me is how a lot of these fans, like somebody at some point will take excerpts from this interview and run them on Blabbermouth or, whatever these websites are. And these fans sit home and they comment and they make remarks like, again, like I was saying earlier, oh, for a guy that doesn't want to talk about Motley, he sure talks about Motley a lot. Bottom line of it is I get asked questions and I answer them. Mm-hmm. That's it. Do I think about Motley? Not at all.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if there's something relevant that I want to say to you in a conversation, or if you ask me a question about Motley, I'm an open book. I got nothing to hide. I'm proud of everything that I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned something from every band that I was in.
Right.
So I consider that a win. And if somebody wants to slag me or knock me for it, fuck off. Go ahead. Have your take your shot. There's nothing anybody can say to me that hasn't already been said. And I just kind of look at life like a car.
Mm-hmm.
I know this is going to sound weird, but if you get in a car and you put the key in and you start that car and you're driving forward, but you're looking in the rear view mirror the whole time you're driving, you're going to hit something.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to. What I mean? So I'm like, yeah, dude, check the rear view mirror every now and then. You can look back briefly, but move forward, man. And that's my thing. Whether people want to believe me or not, I really don't give a shit. Again, I'm happy. I'm writing music. I've got a great wife. I've got great kids, great grandkids. I'm fucking happy. So I don't really give a shit what anybody thinks of me or whether they approve or disapprove of what I'm doing. It's irrelevant to me. Irrelevant.
And that's the thing is that, like, you know, of course, you know, like earlier, you know, we jokingly said like, oh, I'm going to ask you about an hour's worth of Motley Crue questions. And of course that was a joke. But one of the things that you said, which I love, is that it's not so much about being asked about a topic. It's the, like, what's the word? I mean, it's the degree of what's being asked, you know, like if you're looking for something and you're trying to fish for that soundbite, or you're trying to just, you know, ask the same question for the 100th time, like that's one thing. But the thing is exactly what you said, is that I don't feel like you talk a lot about it in the sense that I'm like, oh dude, you've got to let it go. You talk about it because it's a part of your journey. It's a part of your history, and it's a necessary part of it. So depending on how you're talking, the context of how it's being asked about, or the context of what, like again, like I'll be honest, and this is probably why I'm not a huge blog, because I say shit that people don't like to hear, but I couldn't give a rat's ass about Motley Crue. I fucking don't like Motley Crue. I did when I was 12. I don't in my 40s, you know? So like, I'm not going to ask about stuff that doesn't interest me, but it interests me to hear you talk about it as a part of your journey, because I'd almost be upset if you or disappointed if you didn't, because there's also like this plethora of artists, and I probably could name some, and I'm sure you know some just off being a music fanatic you are, is that there's artists that, like, when you hear them talk, you go, why are you omitting this part of your story? Because it was a part of you. Like, why are you omitting this? You know, Black Sabbath is a good example. They had a singer named Tony Martin who was fucking incredible. Probably my third favorite Sabbath singer behind Ozzy and Dio. That chapter of the Black Sabbath story is completely erased. It's not on digital media. It was like talked about in like 2 pages of Iommi's biography. But why? That was a part of your history. Embrace that. Talk about it. Share it with the people. It's part of the story.
Although I really wish Motley would have kept me out of the movie The Dirt, but whatever.
So do I. And what a shitty actor. my first thought was, actually, to be honest, I was actually happy that you had such a small spot in it, because I was like, good on John, man. People didn't even remember he was in it. That's fucking fantastic, man.
And even that was 28 seconds too long. Anyway.
I can love it, dude. Well, so speaking of the new song, and obviously I feel like I could talk to you forever, man. You're like a, you know, weird brother. Well, you know, like, it's awesome. But what about this new song, man? Like, one of the things I did read from you is that, with the release of the song, which again, I told you, I love it. You're talking about releasing like maybe like a new song or so every few months or so. That kind of seems to be something that bands have been doing, especially over the past decade or so with the increase in streaming media. I think that's a really smart thing to do, but what was your reasoning behind doing it that way as opposed to just, I mean, I kind of know, but I want to hear from you, like why you would do that.
It's funny because it was Marty Fredrickson that actually was the catalyst for it. He, at the time I was signed with, this next record I do would have been the third album. I had a 3-album thing with this company called Rat Pack.
Yes. And, yeah.
The COVID thing really sent everybody into a tailspin. Mm-hmm. But Marty and I had started working on a record when COVID hit. Mm-hmm. And then, to be honest with you, I was sitting here and I was kind of pissed at myself. Mm-hmm. And like, cause I couldn't, I'm like sitting there going, yeah, fuck, like I'm okay, dude. Like, I'll wear a mask. Like, Marty was under a rock. I was kind of under a rock. I just wanted to get my record done. Mm-hmm. And so I thought about it and I go, wow, it's crazy. Like in this day and age, 90+% of my income comes from touring. Right. And I can't do that. So I was like, So I no sooner said it to my wife. I was sitting there going, man, I could kick myself in the ass. All these records I've done, I never once sat behind the board and said, okay, so I want this George Harrison rotary tone, or I want this, Jimmy Page tone. How do you get it? Mm-hmm. What are you doing? How are you miking it? Like all the shit. I no sooner said that than this ad popped up on my Instagram page, like learn to use Pro Tools. So I made the call. Mm-hmm. And because it was COVID, they were doing like this way discounted thing. But it was all Zoom classes. Mm-hmm. So I said, okay, you know what? Fuck it. I think I'm going to do it. So I went out, I bought a laptop, an interface. I downloaded the Pro Tools shit. I paid for all the plugins. Mm-hmm. And then I got online and I took the class. I paid them for the classes. And I learned how to do this and I'm still a beginner at it. I'm crude with it. But I sat down and I started recording. Now it came time for Marty and I went down. I live in Nashville. Marty's in between Nashville and Florida. He goes back and forth. Mm-hmm. And I went down to Marty's house to pick up where we left off. And we were sitting there and I'm like, man, I got to get this record done. I got to get this record done. The record label's calling me, asking me where the record is. And Marty said, why are you doing a record? And I was like, is this a trick question or?
Because that's what I do.
Yeah. So we talked about it. And he said, he goes, dude, there's no more Virgin records. There's no more Tower records. There's like even the mom and pop record stores are few and far between. Mm-hmm. The little independent record stores where we would go and buy our shit.
Right.
He goes, really sit down and think about it. He goes, in the last 10 years, where have you sold the majority of records? Mm-hmm. And I said, well, either on my personal website, Amazon, mm-hmm. or at my shows.
Yep.
He goes, okay. Now he goes, those last records, like my Unplugged record and my Live 94 album.
Live 94 one. Yeah.
Yeah. How much radio airplay did you get? And I go, None. He goes, okay, so take that off the board. You know, there is no MTV. Take that off the board.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the one, he was like, here's what you do. You open up a YouTube channel. You get your social media all set up. He goes, you do a song, you do a video, and you put it out there and you promote the shit out of it. And then about 2 months later, drop another single, another video, and you promote the shit out of it. And he said, do that for 2, 3, 4, 5 songs while you're taking your time, you're getting your record together, and you're really making sure that when somebody purchases your record on Amazon or at your show or on your website, that it's 10 stellar songs, not 3 good ones and 8 or 7 of they're okay. Do you know what I mean? Just develop yourself. But he goes, if you do it this way, you're promoting each song on its own. You're letting people know that you're still alive. You're letting people know that you're still being creative. You know, this is the way these kids are doing it nowadays. And the whole streaming thing, I don't understand it at all. But the way he explained it, he was like, you're not going to get radio. Your radio now is streaming services.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's how you develop your thing. So, dude, to be honest with you, I'm not really blind. I'm not really blind, but I'm totally a blind man in a closet trying to find the door. I don't understand a lot of this shit because, again, I'm 62 years old. I came into the music industry when people got record deals and went into the studio with the Eddie Kramers or Bob Rocks, and you know, and then they put a record out, and it was instant gratification. You knew week one, oh shit, we sold 80,000 records this week. Awesome. It's a whole different world now. You know what I mean? I'm just doing what I do, trying to figure it out, and I'm trying to move forward the best of my ability. Is this the right way to do things? Who the fuck knows? I don't know. Couldn't tell you.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, after Marty said what he said, I went back and I started looking at things and comments, like I'm sure you're aware, Gene Simmons a few years ago said, Rock's dead.
Of course Gene said that.
No, but you know what? I did tours with him, and I would sit there in the audience with the Dead Daisies, and I would go, how the fuck can he say that Rock is dead? It's completely sold out here tonight.
Mm-hmm.
What he was talking about was the fans are still there, but we're not getting radio. Now, even bands like Kiss, radio is more apt to play their old shit than their new shit.
Right.
There is no MTV.
Mm-mm.
And to be honest with you, what I'm talking to you on right now, my phone, is actually a computer that we keep in our back pocket. And what he was, that most fans don't buy records anymore. What they do is, like my wife, who's a huge Iron Maiden fan.
Tell your wife, hey.
Now, in all actuality, what she'll do is she'll read like, oh, Iron Maiden's got a new record out, or Justin Timberlake's got a new record out, or whoever. So she'll go on Apple Tunes and she'll type in Justin Timberlake or Kiss or Iron Maiden. And then they give you the whole album in like little 40-second, 1-minute snippets. And she'll listen to each one and make that quick judgment. Nah, I don't really like that one. I like this one, though. I'm going to download that one. I'm going to download that one. I'm going to download that one. And that's it. So it's not like the old days where a fan would go to a record store and buy the Scream album. What they're doing now is they're listening to the whole Scream album and then making their judgment on, what songs they like. So the phone and iTunes and all these different outlets have changed the way we purchase music, we listen to music. And another example, my wife owns a hair salon. So she'll get up, she'll make sure her phone is Bluetooth to her speakers, and then she'll punch in on Pandora Led Zeppelin radio. And it's stream songs all day long. And it's or Beatles radio or Neil Diamond radio, whatever. And she plays this shit all day long, and it mixes it up based on her choice. And that's what she listens to. So she pays that $9 or $10 a month for that thing. But all those bands that are in those playlists, you know, that's like, you know, Cosi Bella now has been placed in a bunch of different playlists, like Queen radio or Beatles radio or whatever. And so I just hope that I get lumped into a Beatles station and they play my track. And they got 25 million listeners on the Beatles radio, whatever. And that's your new radio. That's putting the word out there, you know. So it's just a different world, man. It's like, just trying to figure it out, bro.
But, you know, and it's so funny because one of the things that I was kind of taking back as you were talking about like streaming and stuff is that, like, you know, and you can probably relate to this also, you know, when you were a younger dude, is that there was, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. Like, part of me is like, I wish I would have had this, you know, before I bought like so-and-so's album back in the 80s, because if I would have heard the rest of this album, I would have never bought it, you know? But at the same time, it was always kind of like Russian roulette, you know. It was exciting. Like, I remember hearing, you know, Don't Change That Song, you know, by Faster Pussycat off the first album. I remember hearing Man in the Moon off the Scream album. I remember hearing, you know, Walking Shoes by Tora Tora, you know, Scared, Dangerous, whatever. But you didn't know what the rest of that album was going to be like. So it was kind of like a risk, but it was like exciting, because one of the first things I wanted to do is I wanted to get that album home and bypass the song that I already heard, because I wanted to hear what I just paid. Well, of course, you know, now I'm really aging myself, $8.99 for the vinyl, you know, like, what did I get? That's an exciting thing. And that's something that I feel like generations of music listeners aren't going to get. They're not going to know what that excitement was, you know, of,
you know,
buying Get Your Wings by Aerosmith, having only heard, you know, Seasons of Wither, but then getting the rest of that album and going, fuck, this is, you know what I mean? Like, that's excitement that people won't experience.
Well, and now that's the thing. Now people are more apt to just buy the songs that they like. So, like Marty was saying, he goes, dude, you know, even when you do your record, when you drop your record, just pull a song in there, do a video. You know, you can keep that momentum going. You could do 10 songs, 10 videos, but it's just, you know, it's a different way of doing things. But it's funny because if you really go back in history and you look at the bands like the Elvis Presleys, even the Beatles in the beginning, they didn't do albums.
No.
Singles. And then after they did 3, 4, 5 singles, they were putting together the rest of the record, and they'd do an album, and they would put an album out.
Right.
But it was more about promoting the artist through singles. So it's weird, even though it's a new way of doing things, it's kind of old school. But now we're not walking into a radio station with a 45 and an envelope full of cash saying, hey, play this. You know, now it's about streaming and just trying to keep your name out there, grow your numbers, you know, all that shit. You know what I mean? It's a little old school, but it still is a new way of doing shit.
it's kind of it's a very cyclical motion because we were discussing a couple days ago with a buddy of mine. We're talking about like how there's this new wave of younger bands coming out, Dirty Honey, Greta Van Fleet, bands like this, who they're bringing this style of music to another generation of a younger generation of people. But then like people like you and I are probably thinking like, if I want to listen to Led Zeppelin, I'm going to listen to Zeppelin. I'm not going to listen to Greta Van Fleet. But if some 15-year-old kid has never heard Zeppelin and he hears Greta Van Fleet, that's kind of like, that's part of that cyclical motion. It's like that, what is old is new again, but it's just a totally different avenue.
My music on my phone, there's really no new music. I think probably which bands I have on my phone. I mean, there's a couple of new ones, but for the most part, Seven Dust and, Black Crowes. But all my shit is old Grand Funk, Zeppelin, Alice Cooper, David Bowie, Humble Pie. I've got just all the classic shit. Listen, at the end of the day, there's no artist. I don't give a shit what they think they're doing. They are not reinventing the wheel.
No,
they're not. All you're doing is taking your old influences from back wherever, and you're putting your spin on it. Like Cosi Bella, for example. When I wrote the song, I said to Marty, here's the tune. We worked on it together. And he said, what are you hearing? And I said, I don't know, dude. Something like Penny Lane meets Killer Queen.
Yep.
I got it. But like you said, then when we did the guitar solo, it's very Thin Lizzy-ish with the harmonies and different things. So I just took things that I grew up listening to and I just dropped it in there, stirred it up, and I threw it out there. Now it's got my voice on it. So maybe it sounds, like John Corabi. I don't know. I'm just drawing from the shit that I drew from. But nobody's doing anything different. Nobody's doing anything original at all. Nothing.
Nah, man. Look, if you do it long enough, you start ripping yourself off. So really, you're not even.
What I was going to say is, for these young kids that may or may not have heard of Led Zeppelin, they buy the Greta Van Fleet record, and they see the comparisons that guys like you make. Oh man, this band sounds like old Led Zeppelin. Then what happens is all these new kids go back and they go, oh, who's this Led Zeppelin band they're talking about? Then they go and they hear the original and they go, wow, I fucking love this. And then it's like a whole new generation buys the entire Zeppelin catalog and keeps going over and over and over again. Which is why the Beatles have sold, 1 billion records. If you look at, the Beatles, and then along comes bands like, Jellyfish in the whatever. There's bands along, in the 80s, it was Enough's Enough. And, that it was whoever, ELO, you know what I mean?
Badfinger, bands like that, where like they had that melodic. Yeah.
Generational bands that went back and said, oh, I love the Beatles. Boom. And they had that thing. So that's what I think, these fans go, oh, I love Badfinger. Oh, I love ELO. Oh, I love Enough's Enough. Oh my God, I love Jellyfish. Or I love, you know what I mean? And then they go back and they look at the originals because everybody compares those bands to the original.
Right.
And Beatles just continue to sell to every generation over and over and over again. And that's the beauty of music. It's also the curse, but it's the beauty of music. But
it really is. And it's our job as fans of music, and like mine in particular, like where I think about, like, again, goes back to the whole idea is that, if some of my favorite music is the music that no one's ever heard, those are the bands and the artists that I'm going to tell my friends, you got to check this out. You know, like I'm not going to tell my buddy, hey man, you want to check out a Stones record? Like, because there's a good chance he's heard. But if I said, you know, like when the Unplugged album came out, like I know I had at least 3 or 4 of my friends who were like folk singers, you know, which is kind of the genre of music I've been playing for the past 20 something years, you know, because, you know, you get into other shit as you get older. Like, seriously, like legit singer songwriter type folk singer types heard that album. They were just like, this guy's a metal dude. And I was like, well, I mean, he sang in Crue. I was like, he had a band called The Scream, and they were just like, you know, they loved that album because it transcended any kind of a genre barrier, you know?
That's why I did it.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, inevitably, even with this song, Cosi Bella, the new one, people are like, not many, but a few are like, oh, wow, dude, fuck. I thought it would be heavier, like the Motley record, or the Scream, or Union, or Dead Daisies. And, you know, I'm going to pass. Hasn't been many. Now, the other ones are like, oh, what a great song. Not what I would have expected from you,
mm-hmm.
but a great song. And my thing is, I'm not trying to sweep my history under a rug. I'm not. Again, I'm an open book and I'm proud of everything that I've done. But the reason why I did an acoustic record right out of the gate as my first solo record is because I kind of wanted to erase any parameters or borders, not so much for that record, but for what I'm doing now.
Right.
So, and I tell people this, they, you know, because listen, there was a ton of people that are like, wait, you're going to do an acoustic record?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Why? Why are you doing that's career suicide?
So yeah, I want to. You're an artist.
It might be, but on the flip side, it might also erase everything, not erase, but again, just get rid of the walls and boxes that I was in.
Mm-hmm.
And now, after the acoustic record, nobody really knows what to expect from me. And now I followed it up with, really, I don't really count the Live 94 record.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as new original music, I came out of the gate with Cosi Bella. Mm-hmm. And to be honest with you, even my manager and Marty were like, are you sure you want to do that? Yes. A, I love the song.
Mm-hmm.
And B, it is a little bit out of my wheelhouse. So this is opening the doors for me to go in any direction I want to go in. And I love it. You know, and I've got some stuff, you know, that's, you were talking about folk music. I've got a song that my wife actually thinks is probably one of the best songs I've ever written. And it's not fucking heavy at all. It's not like blazing guitars. It's really kind of a very stripped down I mean, it does build at times, but it's really just like a song. It's like, it's called Laurel. And it was based on that TV show that I saw called Echoes in the Canyon.
Oh, yeah, about the Laurel Canyon scene. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's weird. Like, you think in the whole song that I'm talking about a girl. And in all actuality, I'm talking about all the shit that I was born 10 years too late. And I'm just saying, God, man, I would have fucking loved to have been in that whole scene of like Mickey Dolenz' house on Laurel Canyon to John Phillips, and then going over to Graham Nash's and Joni Mitchell's and just bouncing and smoking some weed and jamming with all these guys.
I mean, seriously, could you imagine going into a house where it's like Joni Mitchell, then like Peter Tork knocks on the door, and then David Crosby comes in and smokes all your weed and plays your guitar, and it's like then it's like, wait, you got to make an album. You got like, I'm gonna call my friends, the Grateful Dead, to back me up. Like, yeah, that's a magical time in music, man. You know, and that's cool that you are able to capture that.
Well, and it was weird because, you know, I saw these two things back to back. One was called Echoes in the Canyon, and the other one on Netflix. I think it was a 2-part series called Laurel.
Yes. Yes.
Laurel Canyon.
Laurel Canyon. Yeah.
And it was all the same story. But I just sat there and I was like, I was so pissed after I watched those. I went, fuck, man, I was totally born 10 years too late. Like I would have been that guy that nobody could kick out of their house. Like, fuck, like seriously, dude.
Me too.
Get out. And like,
I don't wanna.
Yeah. I sat there and I wrote, and it was so weird. Like I sat there and I watched the movies, and then I was like, it was just this magical moment that happened. I grabbed my acoustic guitar and I literally sat down and wrote the song, and I wrote the lyrics that night. And I played it for Marty, and even he went, I don't get where you're going with this. So I'm like, all right, I had my phone recording. As soon as I started figuring out the Pro Tools thing, I went, you know what? A lot of people don't get where I'm going with this thing. So I recorded the song. I did all the things. There's strings on it. There's piano, acoustic guitar. I did the bass, the guitar solo, like the whole bit. And I sent it to Marty and I go, this is what I'm talking about. And he went, oh, dude, this is fucking awesome. It's great. But it's really kind of I mean, if I have to put it into a category, it's really kind of like Tom Petty meets folk music.
See, and I love that, because one of the things that you had just touched, and I swear to God, I'm going to let you get it. What I loved what you said was something about how, like, you know, people were just like, why are you going to do an acoustic album? Why are you going to do this? You know, Da Vinci didn't do 30 Mona Lisas, right? Like, he had a body of work that was significantly different every time he did it, you know? So to me, as a fan of music, I would much rather hear versatility and variety than to hear, you know, Let It Scream 14 times. You know what I mean? Like, that's just, I mean, it could, because I already got Let It Scream. Let me enjoy that. I want to hear something that you're doing now. I want to hear something different. You know what I mean? And to me, you embody what I consider an artist that I admire. And that's what I love.
Well, and the thing of it is, I'm not taking anything away from the bands that have a formula and they stick to it. That's great. Look at AC/DC, who I love. Oh. Okay. Great fucking band. But I was more apt to, I grew up listening to the bands that I loved. And even the Beatles, if you really think about it, in their early career, they were a machine. They were just, that was like those 2-3 minute pop songs. Boom, 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 boom. They sold a gazillion records, but it really wasn't until they met Bob Dylan and smoked a little weed with him that they decided to do Rubber Soul.
Well, because they were very formulaic up until that point.
Right. And my favorite part of the Beatles is actually the later part in their career when they started doing Rubber Soul and Revolver and Pepper and the White Album and Abbey Road, where it was like you really didn't know from song to song what was coming next. That's one of the reasons why I love Queen. Honestly, you know, it's like I love these things like Led Zeppelin, the kings of heavy metal. I'm like, I don't know where you get that. Like, the thing that I loved about Zeppelin is you could hear Misty Mountain Hop. Then the next song was Rock and Roll. And then the Battle of Evermore. And then, or you would hear Heartbreaker live, then Trampled Underfoot, then Kashmir, and then the Rain song. Yeah. It was like, what the fuck? Or what's that other one they had on is it Houses of the Holy? That song, Jamaica.
Oh, Jamaica, yeah.
Yeah, that's reggae, dude. And it's like, kind of, and it's just, I love those kind of bands that just take these elements and they put it into the pot and they just stir it. And they give you a little bit of everything, and it keeps you guessing, keeps you on your toes. You don't know what you're going to get. And I'm a lot of, like, here's the thing, like, some people may know this, may not. Yeah, I love the Beatles. I love Zeppelin. I love Sabbath. But I also like shit like, Sinatra. I like Glenn Campbell. Neil Diamond. I like good songwriters. I like good singers. I like good songs. And, I get a kick out of people that are like, oh yeah, man, I don't listen to that Justin Timberlake shit or whatever. And I'm sitting there going, oh, hey, to each his own. But I cannot sit and look at a Justin Timberlake show and not go, that motherfucker's talented. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Or you look at a guy like I respect the shit out of a guy like, Kid Rock.
Mm-hmm.
Kid Rock, I think, is a fucking genius to a degree, because I don't know how he did it. And I don't necessarily agree with a lot of his political viewpoints.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, that motherfucker came out with a body, bang, baby, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Cool little rap thing. Then he was doing rock. And then he did some songs with Sheryl Crow that were actually leaned a little country.
Right.
And it's like, I just sat there. I was here in Nashville when Bob Seger played, and Kid Rock came on stage with him.
Mm-hmm.
I turned to my wife and I go, that motherfucker's got it figured out. He can literally do a rap album with a bunch of rap dudes and it would be awesome. He could do a rock record with a bunch of rock dudes and it would be awesome. He could do a country record with a bunch of country motherfuckers and it would be. And then he could sit down and, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to do a record with Bob Seger and a bunch of classic old rock motherfuckers and it would still sell.
Oh, yeah.
I love the way that guy has allowed himself to do whatever the fuck he wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't know if it would be believable, John Corabi doing a rap record, but there's a lot of other genres of music that I would like to stick my fingers in.
I could hear you doing a soul record.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Like, do a soul record, do a blues album. You know what I mean? There's so much that's embodied into, you've got the voice, you've got the style. Not a lot of people have that kind of versatility, when they go into, especially if they're coming out of playing heavy music. You know what I mean?
Well, another band too that I really admire is the Black Crowes. Mm-hmm. If you look at their history, they did the Otis Redding song.
Mm-hmm.
They covered that. And then it's like, then they kind of went, the Southern Pride, Harmony, whatever their second, really had elements of like Allman Brothers, really kind of like full laid back Southern groove. And then later on in their career, they do something like, what the fuck? I can't remember what record it was on. But, they had this saying, it was like, da, 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 da. They had this really cool Beatles element.
Amorica, I think is the one you're talking about.
Okay. And then they did a song called Horsehead, which is,
oh yeah,
to me, that's fucking heavier than shit.
That's on By Your Side. Yes, absolutely.
So they're another band that kind of taps into a lot of different things. They love the folk music. They love Southern rock. They love rock. They had that early Humble Pie Faces thing going on. They did that record with, I swear to God, those live records they did with Jimmy Page. It was like they nailed the Zeppelin
over the
shit.
top. It was so good.
That's all I want to do. I just want to be able to do whatever comes in here and comes out here. I just want to be able to put it out there and not have fans scratch their head and go, what? You know, that's it. I just want to, you know, good music's good music. I hate labels.
Well, John, I swear to God, I feel like I could talk to you over like the course of like days. I could drink a pot of coffee and talk to you, but
I'd love to talk to you too, but I got to go in the house now and rinse this nair off my balls. It's starting to burn.
Well, look, so we got the Cosi Bella song that's out on Spotify. I'm gonna make sure that your Spotify page, your YouTube page, your website's all linked. It's a great song, and you are, I mean, without a doubt, you're a rock and roll gentleman and a good human, man. I really dig talking to you, John.
Thank you, brother. Hopefully it won't be another 8 years before we do it again.
Let's make sure that the gap is smaller, okay?
Well, I got new music coming out and a book, so we'll hopefully talk again within the year.
I love it. And next time you're in Atlanta, first round's on me. All right.
That's, you know what, dude, my rounds.
Okay. I'll take half the first round.
Yeah. Good. You might want to down to 25%, but whatever.
Well, John, thank you so much for being such a cool guy, man. And congrats on the great song and everything, and good luck with everything going into 2022 and with the book. And we will catch up soon, man.
Awesome, brother. Thank you. Spread the word.
I will, John. Thank you so much, bud.
Thank you, buddy.
Red apples crawling through the night, busting loose, run away. Always a thrill without a motive. 30 days, such a haze. Everybody wants a piece of the action. Everybody wants a piece of the pie.